Hello everyone and welcome in a new video. In this video number 34, I want to introduce you how to use the URI module to send HTTP request. Before to continue our practical exercise to install a monitoring stack, I prefer to show you some other modules to reuse it in the Grafana installation. You can subscribe to my channel to not miss the next video. You can like this video and comment it. If you want to find the documentation, the slides and code, you can go in the video description and follow the link. To find the documentation about the URI module, you can follow this link about the Ansible documentation. The purpose of this module allows you to send HTTP requests to do many things. For example, to do a test when you want to test an application. If you have in the previous tasks installed an application, for example, or to get some informations of an API. And for example, it is very useful to use this module if you want to wait a response before to continue other tasks. Some parameters about the URI module. Headers, to add an headers to your request. You can compare the URI module to a curl, a simple curl in the CLI. A second parameter, the body parameter, to insert a body in your request, to insert some data. The body format, to specify the format of the body with JSON or a row. Create. The URI module doesn't run the task if a file exists. The dest, to destination, where to create a new file. When you get a file with the URI module, you can store it on our target server. The follow redirect parameter, to follow redirection, like 301. The force basic auth, when you use the basic auth, you can force it. The method of our curl, our URL module, for example, get, post, or whatever. If you use the basic auth, of course, we need to set a password. Oh, sorry. Removes, if you want, when you get a file with the URI module, maybe you want to remove the file before to create a new file. Return content is very useful to get the content of our response and maybe register it in a register to create a new variable and reuse it in the next task. The status code, this is the list of the response code that seems a successful request. And if the request is not successful, Ansible failed and stop at this task. The timeout, very useful. If you want to set a timeout in seconds to abort the request after this time. URL, of course, here, where is the target where you want to send your request. The user, if you use the basic auth, of course, we need a user and the password. Validate cert, if you want to use a strict TLS or not. Our first example, to do it, I just reuse our script deploy.sh. You can find it in the video number 12 if you want. I use the -- create option, and I just want one virtual machine. So now I run it with -- Ansible option to have our Ansible dir, and now I have my inventory, group vars and host vars directories. So our first example, this is this one, and I create a playbook file, of course, playbook.yml. The name of our playbook, our first playbook, for example. We run it on the whole group, but we have only one server in our case, and we define some task. First task, this is this one. First task, of course, we use the URI module to send a GET request on this URL. This is my French blog, and we don't want to have a strict TLS, and we don't use the validate cert. So I save it, I go into my CLI, I use Ansible playbook -i, I specify my inventory and my playbook file. I run it, and now we have a task with a successful task. Another example, we can check the status code of our response. To do it, we just add here a new parameter, status code, and this is a list, and we want to check if we have 200. So what we do in the example, oh yes, 200. This is not mandatory to use a list. We can use a simple integer with 200 to test this response with this status code. I run it again, and we have a successful task. Okay, we can check, for example, to change this status code. I want to check if I have 500, for example. So I run it again, and what we have an failed task, because what we have a status in our response. This status is to 200 and not to 500. Okay. Another example, in this case, we check a list of status code, and we use another website. We use http://bin.org. This is like an API. In this case, we ask to this root response with a status code to 500, and in our case we send a method to post, and we want to check if our response is to 200 or 201 or 301. So I save it, I run it again. Oh, sorry. And of course, we have a fail because we want we send a request to this root, and this root return to us 500, not 200, 201, or 301. Of course, we have an error. If I set it with 500, for example, I run it again, and of course we have a successfully task. Another example, so to return content parameter, and this is very useful. In this case, we use the URI module with the same target, and we activate the return content parameter to set it to yes with the get method, and we register the response in this variable double_content, and after it we just want to debug this variable with the debug module, and we just want to see the content of the content variable. Of course, content variable is a directory. So I run it again. We have the content, and we can see the headers, we can see the origin, and we can see the URL. Okay. Another example, very interesting. So I remove it. We can use the same request, but we change it. We just a body format not to raw but to JSON, and we register the response in the body variable. I debug the body variable, and I ask a specific, so maybe I can run this one before. So I run it. Yes. So we have a JSON. Yes. We have a JSON key, and in the JSON key we have the URL key. Okay. So I run json.json.url. I save it, I run it again, and now what we have only the URL. This is very useful to specify our specific key. Another example, yes, we can do the same things, but we just want to check the response. So yes, I can remove it. We use the URI module to my French blog. I want to get the return content. I register it in I register the content response in content variable, and I just say and I specify when I consider this task is failed. And in our case, this task is failed when in the content we not have xav key. Okay, so I save it, I run it again, and in my case I have a successful task because I have xav key in the page and in the response of our page. So I can add Google, for example. So I save it, I run it again. Maybe I have Google in this site. Oh, not in, sorry, not in. Yes, we can do it. So I run it again. And of course we have an error. Another example, the last one, to use the basic auth. So to do it, I save it, I run it, and in our case we have a successful task because we have been authenticated. Thank you for following this video, and I see you in the next video. Bye!